My DM slash husband has asked me to paint these ghouls. I don't know why. I don't ask questions, but I do assume it's going to be bad. However, my barbarian is going to have an amazing time hacking through these. The ghouls come in three different poses. I have two of each, so a total of six miniatures. And I'm going to try to find a way to differentiate the identical ones from each other. I'm going to do that towards the end of this video. We use these to play D&D, so it's nice to be able to distinguish them from each other. You can say the one holding the skull or the one standing on the headstone. But since I have two of each, I'm going to need to further separate those from each other so that we know which one we're attacking. I kept things really simple with the base. They already had some rocks under their feet, so I just played off of that, adding some more rocks, and I'm going to add some moss later on in the process. So I had to start by trimming off the bases. They weren't that hard. This is a much softer plastic on these miniatures, so I was able to chop them right off. And I was fortunate enough that they fit on the 1-inch round circles I have. A couple of them had a really wide stance, which I thought was going to be a problem, but because the plastic is so soft, I was able to kind of squish their feet around until they fit right onto the space that I had available. For this set of six minis, I have restricted myself to only six paint colors. If you watched my previous video, I used closer to 10 on that one, so this is a really restrictive color palette for me. I went with a blue and red theme. I did use a tiny bit of pure black at the end just to clean the base up, but for the rest of my painting, I stuck to these six colors only. The hardest part, I think, of this challenge was not mixing a purple. I have red, I have blue, no purple allowed. That is one of my favorite colors to paint with. So it added another kind of level of challenge to this, not just using six colors only, but not mixing an additional color using those. I used the official D&D art as a starting point for the colors on these models. So the art that I looked at had very pale skin with blue shadows. So I used that as a starting point. And then after that, I wanted things to pop just a little more. Their artwork just had brown for the cloth and maybe gray for the rocks or whatever was under the feet. And I wanted them to be a lot more vibrant. I love color. These need to pop on the table and be kind of exciting to look at. So I started off with very dark base coats. I used the coal black, which is basically black with just a little bit of a teal undertone. And then I was going to come up from there while keeping everything very, very dark to contrast with that super pale skin. So I really don't enjoy painting groups of miniatures like this. It's boring. It's repetitive. You have to do the same thing over and over to make them a collection. Sure, I could paint them all differently, but they're not particularly exciting for me in the first place. But what's funny is, arguably, they're the most useful. Figures like this are more likely to be used than a random player character or NPC character. The plus side to doing a group of six is I'm knocking out six more miniatures from my collection. I have over 600, I think it's close to 700 miniatures to paint. And hey, doing six instead of just one, that's chipping off a little bit of a bigger chunk of the mountain. And I think that's why I did the color challenge. It made it more interesting, more exciting. I really like how the colors came together. The reds in particular, I was so excited how these red paints came out. They almost glow a little bit on the base. So that did bring some joy into something that I normally wouldn't find as exciting. So I think that's kind of my takeaway from this, that just because I look at a group of figures that I wouldn't even have picked unless I had been asked to paint them for a game, and try to make a challenge out of it and try to make it more exciting for myself to return to the table day after day and get them done. These are some of Reaper Miniature's older models. They're in a softer white plastic. I think they're listed on their website as Ghouls and Ghast. These softer plastic models, they don't have sharp detail, which has its pros and cons. The con is the fingers and toes don't have great detail. I just kind of did my best with them. I didn't worry about it. Again, group of models. I'm not taking as much time on these. The pro is that they were flexible enough to make them fit on the 1-inch bases. They had these wider stances, and I was able to just kind of squish them in place. The bases trimmed off really easily, so they were super easy to work with for that kind of a modification. Part of the reason I started this channel was to make myself paint as close to every single day as possible. I figured if I had a release schedule or something like that to kind of drive me, that I would be more likely to paint at least 30 minutes or an hour every single day. This group of 6 minis took me about a week, start to finish. Nothing really went wrong during the process, but there was a really busy weekend right in the middle, and it slowed me down because I didn't have painting time during those days. But I did some fun things, so don't worry. It's not all bad. The most time consuming part was getting the skin as light as I wanted. I started with the blue, the ashen blue as a base, and it took quite a bit of layering to get it all the way up as almost white as possible. I think if I were to do it again, I would have started by base coating with my highlight with the lightest color and then shade down instead of highlighting up. But it was too late by the time I realized that. So I just kind of forged ahead and did it that way. Now, you might have noticed that there are mold lines on this set of miniatures. And if this were a single figure, I might have taken the time to clean them up, maybe. But for my purposes, the extra effort, it's just not worth it. I give myself permission to skip parts of the hobby I don't enjoy, especially if it's just minor cosmetic things that you're not even going to be able to see from a few feet away. So, the reason I went with red for the moss on the bottom is because I knew I wanted the eyes to be red. And I think it's very important to pull colors throughout the entire model. So I could do the eyes, I could do the inside of the mouth, I could do the fabric that they're wearing. So it just made sense to continue that red all the way down to the bottom for kind of this eerie blood moon graveyard, maybe kind of feel on the base. Not specifically, there's no crazy OSL or ambient light or anything going on here, but I really like how the red moss came out. So overall, I think sticking to just blue and just red as my colors made these figures pop a lot more. So remember how I talked about being able to tell the difference between minis that are identical. They're the same sculpt. They're exactly the same. So I have three sculpts, one with the skull in its hand, one with a headstone underneath its foot, which is the one that I'm using to show my painting process. And then another that's just all like rawr, and he doesn't have anything special going on. He's just all arms and legs. So I took one of each pose and I decided to cover the second ones in blood. So I put blood on their hands, around their mouths. I tried to make it kind of drip down their chests or on the tops of their legs or on some of the surroundings. And I think that really worked well for two reasons. One, we have a couple of options to pick from. So if we want big, bloody, nasty ghouls, those are the ones we'll grab. Or if it's a big pack of ghouls, now we can kind of tell them apart. It can be, I'm going to attack the one with the headstone that's bloody, or that kind of a thing. So it just little ways to try and differentiate them. Usually, I would paint the clothing different colors, but they have such little clothing that I didn't feel like giving them different colored outfits was really going to work in this case. So I went with the blood, and I figured we would just make it work anyway. We can all communicate and talk to each other. But now we have a little bit of differentiating between the two. I guess we could also switch them out and have them be not bloody. And then after they attack, you can make them bloody and gruesome, and if you want to be all extra about it. So I did take the time to paint up my little paint palette card. Again, if you watched my last video, this is something I'm doing for all my minis. I have a picture on the back as well of the miniature that's finished. And it's just kind of for my own posterity. It's my own collection that I'm making. It might be something I stick with. It might be something that I think is just too much time and effort and quit doing. But for now, I'm going to keep doing it because I like starting a little pile of them. I only have two so far, but I'm hoping that I'm going to keep doing it throughout my videos. If you'd like to see if I do stick with it and what I paint next, please do like and subscribe. Maybe you can do some of your own painting while my video is running. Try to get some consistency to your own painting, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next video.